Hi everybody, this is Noelle from Petitti Garden Centers, and it's spring, really pretty sunny day, yay! And we're going to do a plant spotlight on Dianthus. Now, Dianthus, the Latin is Dios or Dios, divine, and anthos, which is flower, so divine flower. Pretty cool, right? Beautiful plants. Many of you may know Dianthus is an annual. Some of you might know them as Sweet William, which is actually a biennial. And others may know you as kind of hardy carnation types or ground cover types. And so we'll talk about those today. But first, what do they need? Well, they love sun. So get them out in the sunshine, full sun conditions, usually 6 or more hours of sun they will require in order to flower well. If you put them in part shade, they'll survive. Don't get me wrong. They just might not flower or repeat bloom as well as you would like them to. So keep that in mind. As far as soil, they like it well drained. They actually like it a little bit gritty. And also they like neutral soil pH to slightly alkaline. So if you can sweeten your soil, plant them with a little bit of garden lime or use a little sweet peat around them, they would actually really enjoy that because we tend to be a little bit more acidic in Northeast Ohio. So keep that in mind. If your Dianthus aren't looking so great, maybe they're yellowing, maybe they're just not performing well for you, and you're taking care of all their other needs, think about the soil pH and the light bulb will go off and say, hey, maybe I need to sweeten the soil a little bit for them to really do better and thrive out in the garden. Watering wise, they really would like to be average moisture. They can take and tolerate a little bit of drought. Don't get me wrong, you still want to water like you water all of your newly established plants. You're going to water them 1 inch of water once a week, thoroughly and deeply, okay? After they get established, and of course they have very shallow root systems, so after they get established, you want those roots to follow the water down into the soil. After that first year, they're pretty much ready to go, very, very non-fussy, and can really kind of take a little bit more abuse, okay? So keep that in mind. Feeding wise, we're going to feed them like we normally feed most of our perennials. In the spring, you want to apply plant tone and iron tone. And then Angelo suggests applying Osmocote midsummer to kind of give them a little bit of a boost through the rest of the growing season. So keep that in mind with really most of your perennials. If you do cut these back, which you should, because most of your perennial Dianthus now are so vigorous and produce so many blooms for you that after you get that first flush of blooms and it's about 75% spent, go ahead and shear those off. Give them a little bit of liquid fertilizer, like a Miracle Grow, let's say, and then go ahead and you'll see that they'll produce all new flushes for you. Some of them are continuous bloomers, so you'll see buds under your top growth or your top flower. So they really have developed some wonderful Dianthus in the way that that produces nowadays. It used to just be kind of a spring, early summer flush. You would cut them back, you'd give them a little bit of food, and then when it kind of cooled down later summer, you'd see them pop back out again. It's really not like that anymore. So these Dianthus really are meant to be enjoyed in the garden, in containers. They just do a great, great job for us. Okay, now uses. As I mentioned, you can definitely grow them in containers. They do very, very well because of course we can control the type of soil drainage that we have in a container. We can also make the pH a little bit sweeter or more alkaline too. So we can add a little lime to that container soil, and they love that as long as they're draining out and the soil never gets overly wet. Of course, do make sure, same thing in the landscape, you're going to want to make sure that it's well drained soil, as I mentioned. And of course, in the landscape, we find them in rock gardens. We find them at sunny edge of a cottage garden border. We find them in cutting gardens, no problem whatsoever, because all of these flowers, the longer the stems, obviously you'll have a longer cut flower for yourself, but you can cut the shorter stem varieties, no problem. Put them in little bud vases. They work really, really great. Another really great thing about the Dianthus, of course, many of them are fragrant. So we enjoy that sweet, slightly clovey scent that they do provide. And so that's always really nice too, to get some more fragrant flowers either in the containers or in the garden as well. So try those. They absolutely attract your pollinators in general. I will have to say again, brighter, darker colors, the reds, the bright pinks are always going to bring in the hummingbirds to that area. Single flowering types are always going to be best for hummingbirds to kind of stick their proboscis in. But again, the double flowering types like the carnation types are always very, very pretty, and you will see pollinators kind of buzzing around those flowers as well. Now, let's talk about varieties, and I think some of you may know this, but your annual type of Dianthus is just called that. It's an annual Dianthus. What's really neat about them is they're sort of on the shorter side, usually don't grow any more than, let's say, 6 to 10 inches tall, and about that wide as well, 6 to 10 inches. They are a true annual type for the sun. Again, can go in part shade, but flower better in the sun for you. And they tend to reseed. So you think you're getting Dianthus year after year in a sunny border, and it ends up being an annual type that is reseeding for you. So it's kind of a bonus. So that's always really nice. So you will see annual Dianthus, which really means that it's only supposed to bloom for that one growing season and then die back over winter. But in this case, Dianthus can reseed. So you'll find those in the annual departments when you come to the garden center. Now, the next type is Sweet William, and Sweet William is a very, very popular Dianthus variety. It's because it's so showy. It produces clusters of flowers, and again, fragrant, beautiful colors, reds, purples, picotees, where they have the white edges around the flowers. So again, really, really beautiful, and always develop and fill out in the garden really nicely. So it can kind of suppress weeds underneath, which is great. Now, biennial means the first year is actually the leaf production. So they're producing all of their leaves. It's the second year that they produce all their flowers. If you want Sweet William to come back for you, make sure you let those flowers develop seeds, let those seeds drop, or collect those seeds so you can resow them. And you want to do that every other year. Continue to make sure that you're either planting Sweet William or sowing the seeds of Sweet William. So you will have both leafy Sweet William and flowering Sweet William growing at the same time, so they can alternate and you can always have blooms there for Sweet William. Now, the last variety is your perennial Dianthus. And don't get me wrong, there are so many beautiful varieties. Sometimes you hear the term pink or cottage pink or cheddar pink or maiden pink. There's all different names for them, but we'll just say Dianthus or pinks for the most part. And these have become very hybridized. So there's lots of different varieties that have kind of, or species I should say, that have been combined to produce these beautiful, beautiful colors. The ones that you might be most familiar with are the carnation types. So if you look right here, beautiful carnation type flowers. This one's actually called Pinball Wizard, so it's kind of cool, where you have that white and red sort of candy stripe carnation. Now again, longer stems on the carnation flowers, but you do want to watch out in the garden, so make sure that you give them some support if you're growing the longer stem types. I will have to tell you, most of the newer varieties or species of these, they actually are shorter and a little bit stronger. So you can grow them out in the garden without having to support them. And just remember to continue to cut them. The more you cut a flower like that, the more energy goes back into the plant. And again, so they can produce more buds and more blooms for you. Okay, so Pinball Wizard's going to be like that. Another really showy flower series or Dianthus series that we have is actually called Scent First. And Scent First is very fragrant, but also has multiple colors and double flowering types. So again, you're going to see, like, Taylor's favorite is Coral Reef. We show this one a lot. Beautiful coral color, white picoty edges on it. This one is actually called Sugar Plum right behind me. beautiful, kind of different shades of pink. You see a little bit of violet in it, and you also see a little bit of a red eye to it. So really pretty, really showy. And then this guy is actually tickled pink. You can tell how it blooms. You've got all these flowers underneath, and then those new flowers are coming up above, and they're gonna start budding. So this one, again, this series is just one after the other. They just keep on coming and coming. You cut, you use as you need to. Deadhead, you always want to deadhead dianthus. Try to get those spent flowers because they're pretty big flowers with a lot of petals. And so therefore, when they die back, they can get a little bit gross on the plant. So deadheading, putting the energy back down into the plant is always going to be really good. Very much recommended to take care of these guys, okay? Another series that we do have is actually called Everlast. Everlast is a little bit shorter. I've got lots of colors in this series, everything from a pink to a burgundy to a white. Again, beautiful flowering, a little bit shorter than the Scent First series, maybe around 8 inches or so tall. Again, and these guys are going to just keep on blooming for you. A little bit smaller flowers. You can just kind of pick at every once in a while, deadhead, and they'll do really nicely and keep on blooming. I've got a couple different varieties. Hori, if you're looking for a sort of a ground cover type, nice and short and compact, it's really about 5 inches tall, really profuse blooming, beautiful fuchsia color. This one is Delilah. This is purple bicolor. She's actually one of the more taller varieties at maybe 12, 14 inches, but really clean and beautiful plant. So do look for Delilah out there too. PW has their Black Cherry Frost. And again, you can see all of that, the first set of blooms at the base, and then they're all coming up and really filling out. Black Cherry Frost has a beautiful fragrance as well. So lots to choose from, folks. I'm sure you'll find a favorite somewhere out there. Again, Coral Reef is always going to be Taylor's favorite, but do try them, especially if you have sunny areas, well-drained spots that you want to grow beautiful cut flowers, fragrant flowers, some pollinator attractants. Try Dianthus. Enjoy.